Letitia James's defense wants this case tossed out to begin with,
Yes.
saying that U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan shouldn't be in her position to begin with. That's a similar argument we're seeing from James Comey's defense attorneys. How realistic is that?
It's, first of all, it is realistic to the extent that 2 other courts have already granted those motions in Nevada and in New Jersey. And so while generally speaking, this is kind of an odd motion, we're also seeing this president use interim and acting positions with a frequency never before seen. Now, he'll say that's because he can't get his nominees through what's called the blue slip process, which allows home state senators to essentially pass judgment on nominees before they're brought to the Senate floor for confirmation. But notwithstanding that, Lindsay Halligan is in her role after somebody else was already in that role for 120 days. That's the basis for the motion here. Jim Comey and Letitia James's motions about Lindsay Halligan's appointment and its lawfulness have been consolidated. As of today, they'll likely go to a judge outside the Eastern District of Virginia, and I think they have a pretty good shot. The difference here, though, is that the very validity of the indictment turns on whether Lindsay Halligan was lawfully appointed. Why? Because she's the only person who went into the grand jury. She's the only person who signed the indictment, Ariel.
Okay, so to that end, Leslie, on the merits, legal experts are saying this case is weak. We are seeing that in our MSNBC reporting. So how likely is it that we see this case even get to trial?
I think there's a good chance that the case will not go to trial. I think the 2 motions that I think the defense is going to make, the dismissal for vindictive or selective prosecution, and because the U.S. attorney, as Lisa just alluded to, is not lawfully appointed, or at least that will be the motion. I could see, given the track record of this case, where you had career prosecutors who actually investigated Letitia James and concluded there wasn't sufficient evidence, and then they were fired, Lindsay Halligan was brought in specifically to indict the Comey and James cases. So, and that was following statements which everyone's aware of by the president about they might be indicted, justice must be served. I probably have the exact words wrong, but so I think if there's ever a case for dismissal for vindictive or selective prosecution, the Comey case and James case are sort of exhibits A and B.
So Ken, now that we've got you, just bring us up to speed on what we saw today in court. We heard Lisa run down sort of the defense argument there. What did you see?
Yeah, well, it was a pro forma arraignment. Tish James pled not guilty to both charges. Charges were read, and there were arrangements made for her release on her own recognizance. Before the hearing, she was booked and processed by the FBI, and then there was some talk of some of the motions and some schedules for hearings in December on the various ways that the defense is going to attack this case. I think one of the most interesting things that happened today, actually, though, was that we were able to confirm the existence of a memo written by one of the career prosecutors who investigated this case and then was fired. And that memo suggested that the evidence may be even weaker than the evidence that we're seeing right now. Remember that prosecutors allege that the profit that James made on this mortgage, favorable interest rate they allege that she got on the second home, amounted to about $50 a month. But this memo said it actually may have been as small as $15 a month. And the memo also said that the rules about occupancy and the difference between a second home and an investment property are so opaque that it may be difficult to support the idea that there was any criminal intent in this case. And for that reason, this career prosecutor recommended that the case shouldn't go forward. Now, this is separate from the U.S. attorney, the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney who was fired because he also didn't want to bring the case. This is the career criminal chief here in Norfolk, Elizabeth Usey, who looked at this and said, look, there's no there. She wrote this memo. She and her deputy have been fired. The U.S. attorney was fired, and Lindsay Halligan is moving forward with this case. And it just underscores the unusual nature of this whole process and the fact that, again, career people have looked at this and said this is not a case the Justice Department should be prosecuting.
So just to drill down on that, Leslie, I know you alluded to this before. How rare is this that we are seeing the undercutting of the arguments before we even see them presented in court?
So I think it's pretty rare, and I think that's because this case is pretty rare. I was a prosecutor in various offices for about 18 years with DOJ, and I've never seen this particular statute used in such a small money kind of case. I mean, it's a very small amount of money that's even alleged. So even if there was a fraud, which I'm not saying there was or wasn't, it was too small for a federal prosecutor to bring a case. So I think that makes it very unusual right off the bat.
Okay, so Catherine, let me play a little bit of what Ed Martin, this is Trump's pardon attorney at the DOJ, said earlier. He oversees the so-called weaponization group. Let's listen.
If they can be charged, we'll charge them. But if they can't be charged, we will name them. And we will name them. And in a culture that respects shame, they should be people that are shamed.
Is this just a case of name and shame? Even if the case has no merit, this is just naming and shaming Letitia James, showing her as a defendant as opposed to the prosecutor that she is?
To be argued, yes. It's ironic that it's called the weaponization group because that's exactly what it's being used for, to weaponize the Department of Justice against the perceived enemies of President Trump.
Okay, so Ken, Trump has also targeted California Senator Adam Schiff. You had some reporting yesterday where prosecutors told the DOJ that there was really no basis to indict Schiff. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's right, Ariel. My colleague Carol Lenig and I learned that the U.S. Attorney in Maryland, Kelly Hayes, who is a career prosecutor but also a Trump appointee, has essentially concluded that there isn't enough evidence to bring a case of mortgage fraud against Adam Schiff. They've been investigating for months, and she had a meeting with the Deputy Attorney General and essentially explained that and was told that she should keep investigating. And Ed Martin, the guy you just played there, has been pressing forward to keep this case against Adam Schiff alive. And again, we're talking about a member of Congress who had two homes, one in his district, one in the Washington area. He says that he did nothing wrong and was totally upfront with his lenders about the status of both homes. And again, you know, this is a situation where career prosecutors are looking at this and saying, this is not a criminal case that the Justice Department should be bringing, but this Justice Department seems intent on bringing it, encouraged by Donald Trump, who is, you know, saying, insulting and denigrating Adam Schiff almost on a daily basis at this point, Adam Schiff being one of his most ardent critics. Again, something we've never seen before in modern American history. All right.
Ken, you teed it up perfectly. Let's listen to what the president said about Adam Schiff.
Adam Schiff is one of the lowest forms of scum I've ever dealt with in politics. He's a horrible human being. Very dishonest person. I have no idea what's going on. You tell me that he's going to be indicted. I don't know. You could ask Pam. I don't know if she could say it. Probably you are allowed to say it, but I wouldn't know about that. I can only tell you he's a very bad. I think he's actually a sick person. Do you want to talk about that?
We're not going to comment on any grand jury that's open. We can't legally.
I don't know. By the way, I hope it's true.
Okay, Lisa, does the president speaking about Adam Schiff like this hurt the prosecution's ability to see this case through?
Absolutely. So let me tell you the various ways in which it does. I can think of two. One, every time the president opens his mouth about Adam Schiff or anybody else who's under investigation or under indictment, that lends itself, fuels right into a vindictive prosecution motion because it shows animus toward that particular person. In Adam Schiff's case, the statements by the president about Schiff are legion. But the second way that it hurts is what Pam Bondi said. She was trying to be circumspect, but what she said, the words matter. I'm not going to comment on any open grand jury. Okay, she's not supposed to even confirm the existence of a grand jury investigation. That is antithetical to Federal Rule 6E, which governs the disclosure of not only grand jury materials, but grand jury information. And it appears that in that instant, even though Pam Bondi was trying to be careful, she may have run afoul of the federal rules about grand jury information.
Catherine, I see you nodding your head.
Yes, you don't confirm or deny. She should have just said, I'm sorry, I have no comment. So she basically confirmed that there's a grand jury investigation.
And what do you think?
I agree with everything that these folks have said. That's just how you do things. And you also don't do that. The president should not be commenting on whether there should be a prosecution. And as Lisa said, it's fodder for a vindictive prosecution motion if he ever actually does get indicted.
Zoom out for us, Leslie, for just a moment and speak to the environment that we find ourselves in and how unique this climate is and to the perceived weaponization of the DOJ.
So it's not perceived weaponization, it's actual weaponization right now. I think that Trump popularized the weaponization language during the Biden administration, but this is real weaponization where prosecutors are being fired. The professional judgment of career prosecutors is being overridden for political motives and for vengeful motives. I would suspect that the president might not even care if any of these people actually get convicted.
Right.
It's sort of along the lines of the Ed Martin shame these people. And I think that's, I have no idea what he's thinking, but I think that is something that's never happened before, at least that I'm aware of.
So, Lisa, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, who leads the Judiciary Committee, has responded to Special Counsel Jack Smith, former Special Counsel Jack Smith's request to publicly testify. What do you think he wants to say?
I think Jack Smith, whatever he wants to say it in the open so that it cannot be manipulated or cherry-picked or distorted by either the Senate or the House Judiciary Committees. So I think that openness is more important to him than the substance of anything he's going to say. He wants it available to all of us fully and completely so that nobody gets to put words into his mouth and nobody gets to only tell a partial truth about how he responded, Ariel.